Welcome back, everyone, to Factory Talk. This is Jamie Flinchball, and in partnership with Industry Week, we bring you the series from the unsung heroes that are inside manufacturing and operations. And so today, glad to have Dan Royston joining me.
Factory Talk: Secrets of Effective Plant Leaders. Produced by
So Dan, welcome to the Factory Talk show. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Hey, thank you, Jamie. Glad to join. So my name's Dan Royston. I've been with the company A.O. Smith for 27 years. Been through a number of different locations, but been at this particular position as the director of operations in McBee, South Carolina, for a little over 4 years now. And interestingly, the company moved me here in 2015 to run the manufacturing piece of the operation. 1 year later, they moved me up to Charlotte to run a location up there, and then asked me to come back at the end of 2018. So I had some background in the product and the processes and the people, which was really beneficial to be able to return in 2018. So it's been a journey, and in the 4 years is really probably the most productive and being able to move the needle more than anywhere else.
Yeah, sometimes it's great to step away from a site and go back and you just see it in a different lens, right? You see some different, progress, and you see some different problems based on other perspectives. I remember back when I was doing some consulting, I would sometimes go visit sites that I used to work in, and it was a very different role and different lens for sure. So, speaking of my own, operations background, I remember sometimes I could tell if I was going to have a bad day in the first 15 minutes. And so the start to the day can set the tone for a lot. So as you start your day, what's most important to you that you do or look at or think about as you start every day you come into the building?
Well, I am extremely regimented and repetitive in what I do. I find what works for me, and I repeat that over and over and refine that as we go. And I'm also an early riser, so I get up before 5 o'clock in the morning and really get myself prepared and ready to face whatever may come. But one of the key things that I try to do, I have a 40-minute commute to work, and I find it's very beneficial if I listen to some audio books, particularly something around coaching or process improvement, which helps get me in the right mind frame for when I get here. Once we get here, we have a very set routine. We have a production stand-up meeting in an Obeya room at 7:30 in the morning, and that really tells me where we are and what's going to happen for the day. We go through the standard safety, quality, delivery, maintenance, production control schedules, and all those guys report out on their things, and then the production supervisors review hour-by-hour sheets for the end of the shift. We repeat this at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the end of first shift, but the first shift production supervisors will cover second shift. They'll talk about the obstacles that they may have during the day, hourly workforce attendance, and you can really read the room during that meeting, because if they're going to have a good day, we're all going to have a good day. And if they don't have a good day, then we really know how that goes. At the end of that meeting, we do a gimbal walk, going to different production boards. And McBee's a little bit unique in the A.O. Smith world. It's really distributed out into work centers. So if you did a spaghetti diagram of workflow, it would really truly look like a spaghetti diagram. So we manage all this production, product coming in, product coming out, into individual work centers, and each of those work centers will have at least one production management board, and we go to that several of those each morning. We rotate through the week so that we hit everything from receiving all the way back through our stamping process in 5 days. And really, so at that board, the team leader or a team leader for that work center will report out against that board. He would usually, him or an additional team lead will go over a problem-solving flow chart, and we really talk about what help they need, what resources we can provide them from other places within the factory to overcome obstacles. This is a structure that we've put in place since I've been back, and it is absolutely fabulous, particularly the problem-solving flow charts. These are guys that may have been welders or assemblers or material handlers, and they were chosen to be elevated into a team leader position based on their attitude and their work ethic, and whether they're really proficient at learning new skills and new jobs. And we've taken a good population of those people, elevated them to team leaders, and after they go through the problem-solving flow charts in a repetitive nature, they've completed 10 or 15 of them. You can really see the transition in the thinking of that employee. They start really thinking more scientifically. They're addressing issues before they happen, and they're really starting to act like engineers. So I have a population, we're still developing those skills, obviously, but I have a population of about 50 or 55 team leads out on the floor that are all moving in the direction of thinking like a process engineer. So it's very, it's amazing to be able to see that transformation. And it is personally satisfying to be able to see those guys step up and do things that they may have previously thought they wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, that's really neat. And hopefully you don't make them think too much like engineers. I like to call myself a recovering engineer. So we have plenty of flaws to bring to the table. I love your, hey, 40-minute commute. You listen to ebooks and things like that. I have to say, as a way back when we had in the plant I was in, we had a pretty powerful radio system because it was a 2 million square foot factory, and I had a bad habit of listening to the radio while I would drive home, at least, to basically go, well, what's happening when I'm not there? Not as productive a use of my 40-minute commute, and the radio would reach most of that way. So, but I thought what was really interesting as you talked about your startup and routine to the day is, you started talking about what you do, and then as soon as you sort of mentally walked through the door, you started using the term "we," which was, I think reflective of the culture of we. And so it was kind of interesting. Here's what I do, and then you walk through the door, and it's a we, and it just sort of like this natural switch for you that immediately started. So I just, I don't know if know if you're aware of that, or if it's just so programmed in how you think as a leader. But let's talk about you a little bit as a key component of that leadership team. You talked about some of them in that routine, but what are some of your most important touch points as a leader? What do you pay attention to? Who do you talk to? How do you dig beyond the Gemba walks to get a sense of things? What are your touch points?
Well, with the supervisors, they're attuned. Their day starts very early too, particularly in parts of our fabrication areas. They'll start work about 5 o'clock, so they're pretty um, in pretty far into their day when we meet in the morning. Um, but through those, I'll get to the Obeya room a little bit early every morning. Just I'll walk down the hour by hour charts, take some notes of different obstacles that may have, things that may have happened on second shift so I can follow up later in the day. And some of those guys will come in and I can tell as soon as they walk in the door, if they're, all their key people have showed up for work. They've got all the material that they need for the day, and they're gonna be able to set the woods on fire. You can see it on their face when they come in. After we go through our routine, typically as we're walking to the Gemba boards, there'll be a couple of stops along the way with a couple of members of my staff where we talk through some things, maybe point out some things that we see. And I use that really as a coaching opportunity. I'm not going to be sitting in this chair forever, and somebody needs to step up. And I want to make sure that that we're seeing things and opportunities because there's lots of opportunities in any manufacturing location. But I want to make sure that they're seeing some of the same things that I see, and that we're on the same page, whether it be my engineering manager or my materials manager, who those two usually walk with me. Once we complete our Gemba walk, I have a couple of places that I'll walk, and depending on the day, because every factory has some informal leaders out on the floor. And I go touch base with some of those each day, see how they're doing, what they've heard, what the rumor mill's saying, anything that I need to get out in front of or just be aware of. Then once I get back to the office, I have we made a change maybe a couple of months ago. In the corporate world, if you look at your calendar, it's pretty solid from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock anymore. So we tried to clear out and not have any meetings from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and have that blank for all of my staff and my team, so that they can provide assistance and things that need to happen, so that we have a good start to every day. At 10 o'clock, we get together for just a few minutes as a staff every day. And we go through challenges they may be having or things that they've interceded with, or what their schedule looks like for the rest of the day, things that we as a group need to be aware of. Every week I meet, I see all my staff every day. It's kind of a routine thing. But every week I meet with them for 30 minutes. They have 30 minutes on the calendar. We have a smart sheet plan. They'll bring that, show me where they're at, what their group's working on. And then we'll just talk about how their group's doing. Who's struggling, or who's really going above and beyond, and what we can do to help out in both cases. So
fantastic.
Answered your question, yeah. Jamie.
Well, I love the touch points with the informal leaders. It's something that most leaders learn to pick up on. It's not it's not something that a lot of leaders sort of talk about as part of their sort of standard routine, and it becomes an important part of the overall engagement with the organization. As you said, find out what you're missing, right? Find out what you need to be paying attention to, and be worried about. So you mentioned a couple times the Obeya room, and my guess is some of the listeners will know what that means, right? It just basically means big room, but I'm sure it means a whole lot more to all of you. And both in terms of how it fits into the operational flow, but also how it fits into the culture, based on a couple of your comments. So, without necessarily revealing, your performance, but what can you tell us about the Obeya room? What is it, and how do you use it?
So we've only recently got an Obeya room. Before, we just had a corner out here in the factory where we all came together. Everybody, for each individual work center, we had a place where they hung up their hour by hour charts, and we walked through those and reviewed those charts every day. So a key component of an hour by hour chart, and the way we do that, is the target is not really the target. The target is the capacity by the hour. And if you don't hit your 100% full capacity every hour, or any hour, because it's full capacity, we really want to understand what the obstacle was that kept us from meeting that, so that through our problem solving, we can start removing those obstacles in little bits and pieces and chip away and get a little better as time goes on. So the Obeya room in the factory, it became a little bit difficult to hear if you had a group of people and you weren't up front, right in front of the person. So we put a room together where we hang up all of our charts. We've expanded that just a little bit so that the materials group has a place, the safety and environmental people have a place to hang up important information that they review. Our scheduling, production scheduling, we go through a repetitive production schedule over a X number of days. And it's very important that we stay up to date and understand the obstacles to be able to stay on our schedule. And that really drives the throughput through our factory. We also, at the end of each of those meetings, we go on a rotating basis. The HR person will report out. We have a big TV. They'll report out where we are on head count, where any gaps exist, and what we're doing to close those gaps. The engineering manager will go over projects and things like that. And the production managers will also review their results and projects that they're working on, where they may need some help from some of the others. So it's one of the aspects. When I came here, we never got together like that. So this is really good. At least if I'd been a production supervisor and I'm able to stand up there and hear the plant manager every morning and hear these different people and stay current on everything that everybody else is doing. We even have a financial review every week of where we were the previous week. As a supervisor, I never had that information or that capability. We never did those things. So it's really helped from a team building, a knowledge base. Everybody's on the same page. They know what the goal is. They know what we have to do to make that happen. It's really helped from a group, and we're 550 employees, almost 1 million square feet. So, it's easy to get, if you don't have that kind of mechanism, it's easy to get lost in the shuffle every day.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to keep on the same page and together. So that's very helpful. I remember, those corners of the plant that you mentioned, right? That you try to put up some boards and have some meetings, and it works for a while, and then usually what starts to happen, you might even put up some safety pylons to make sure the corner's the safe corner, and then the meeting grows and there's people standing out in the aisle, and you know it just it great intentions, right? But it's hard to jam those corners into a production facility without a proper setup like an Aveo room. So
Yes, it is.
um, so you talked actually early on. You talked about people quite a bit, but you even talked about product, process, and people. It was kind of some of the key categories you think about your operation. And you've really talked quite a bit throughout this about people development. Learning about problem solving and things like that. Um, so really a two-part question. I'll kind of put these two questions together, and you can, because I'm not sure how for you intertwined they are, but I kind of believe they might be. But one part is what do you look for in effective frontline leaders, and the other part is what do you do to develop people, while dealing with the pressure of product and process, right? So product, process, and people. So how do you keep developing people under all those daily pressures, and where does the frontline leadership and their qualities come into play with all that?
That's a good question, Jamie. So, and I mentioned kind of how we choose team leaders, and there are 50, 55 team leads in this building, and we develop those team leaders very intentionally. We take them through a training period. They meet as a small cohort, usually 5 or 6 that we go through at a time. Once a week for an hour at the end of their shift, and that lasts for 26 weeks. So the first week, I get up in front of them and I talk to them about what it means to be a team leader, how important their job is to the success of our factory, the kinds of things that they're going to have the opportunity to impact. Now the hourly employees on their team, which will be 6 or 7 hourly employees, will look to them as the leader, and they have the opportunity to develop those people and make an impact on their life. We go through an extensive training for team leads, and then there is a piece that's more ad hoc at the end. We're currently putting together a phase 2 of that training. So we go back and re-emphasize some of the points, whether it be safety training, and get further into lean tool development and knowledge and some of those things. So we're very intentional around that. A piece of that training is for them to go through problem solving completions, and we meet twice a week during lunch to have lunch brought in. They'll present to myself and my staff, their supervisor or their coach, if their supervisor's their coach, whoever their problem solving coach is, will be there with them to support them. And that develops a couple of different skills for them to be able to stand up and present in front of a group of people. But the takeaway from that is we don't really critique in that forum. We encourage and appreciate what you're working on. You're really doing a good job. Where can I help? Those are the discussions in that forum. Then as coaches, we meet afterward. And at that point we may be, this guy's really going down a rabbit hole here. Let's try to pull him back and help him out. So there is intentional education, there is intentional coaching and encouragement for the team leads, and as part of their development that goes on almost a continuous basis. Again, at the Gemba boards, it's the same type of coaching and encouragement at the Gemba boards. When we step up to a supervisor, and we've promoted in my 4 years, I think 3 team leads into a supervisor position. There are different set of skills. One, you need to be a high performing team lead if you're going to step up, and you have to also have the desire to take on that additional responsibility and be able to lead a larger team of people. Once you're a supervisor, we invest very heavily again in development and in some things that have been trouble points here in the past. As a supervisor, you need to own your area and own all normal operations. Escalate abnormal operations. Don't worry about workarounds. Okay, that's when you elevate to your boss, your manager, that something's not normal. I need some help here, and it's not just on me to figure it out. They also have to build team engagement, develop their teammates, do problem solving coaching for their team leads, and we go through good behaviors and skills from a coaching standpoint as well. We've partnered up with a company called TMG that's really helped us put together some real meat on the bones, so to speak, in supervisor development that I've been very, very impressed with. And our group's really taken it on. Just like every other factory, after COVID, we struggled with attracting and retaining people. And it wasn't just that we turned over all the hourly people in our factory. It was some particular jobs that may have been physically demanding or too mundane and routine. But every job's important. But we went through a really carousel of hiring and training, losing those people in 60 days and hiring and training and losing those people in 60 days. So really what we've embarked on is team member engagement as part of employee attraction and retention. We've done a number of things in the 4 years in this factory to change the way people look at factory work. And we're in a different generation of people that may have spent time, instead of working on the farm, playing video games. So you have to think a little bit differently. So what we want is somebody walks in this door on their first day to really think about, I'm not here for a job, that I'm here for a career. And we have visuals and programs so that every single job that we have in this factory, up to area manager, they have a path. We have a spelled out path that requires their commitment in order to move along that path, but we partner with them and help them get there. We have 4 different apprenticeship programs. It's enormous. It boggles my mind. I've been here watching it happen, but it's been a real plus for this location. So if you come in as an hourly employee working on an assembly line and you say, I want to be a supervisor, there is a path for you to get there. If you want to be a robot technician, there's a path for you to get there. Whatever you see, we can make it happen. And that's really helped. It is really paying benefits for the location because we've become more self-reliant when we have openings within our workforce.
That's That's fantastic. As we say, need is the mother of invention, and you had these challenges to overcome, and leaned in to invest in people development, career paths. I love just the premise of you're choosing a career, not just a job. Um, Also going back a little bit into what you were talking about, just not a lot of sites really invest in coaching. And even when they do, is the reason I committed so much time in the book People Solve Problems to coaching. It's because I think it's the biggest leverage point for development of people and problem solving skills. But what some organizations will create programs like you have, where you sit down, you do the coaching. Very few will take that extra step that you mentioned, where the coaches get together, figure out what's working, what's not, and make the coaching better, right? So we just say, oh, the experienced people will coach the inexperienced problem solvers, but you're actually trying to make coaching better, more aligned, and its own PDSA loop, or continuous improvement of coaching, which I have to say is pretty rare that people take the time to do that, especially in the day-to-day of operations. So
Well,
love to
there's
hear.
an accountability component to that too. If I'm coaching a problem solver and they go and present and it's 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 a disaster, right? That's not going to be communicated to the problem solver. That's going to be communicated to the coach. You didn't do a good job coaching,
Yeah,
right?
perfect. Love it. Well, hey, as we wrap up here, this wasn't a question I was really planning on asking you, but I think you'd be a great advertisement for manufacturing as a whole, because you really see it, and even just that attitude around the people and the career path is fantastic. So, I'll say, what would you say to young people that are considering a career in manufacturing? What's the why? Or why should people consider a career in manufacturing?
Well, I would say uh, the reason I would say a career in manufacturing would be a way to go is the same reason I chose a career in manufacturing, is that it's rewarding and the sky is the limit. You can work in retail or the service industry, but how far can you go? The skills that you learn, the people you interact with in any manufacturing facility is transferable anywhere, in anything that you may do. And it is, for me, it is satisfying to see us take a 20-ton coil of steel and turn it into the most respected commercial water heating product sold in the world. And we do that a bunch of times a day,
Right.
and it's amazing. It's amazing.
Oh, fantastic. I knew you'd have a good answer to that. So appreciate your sharing your experience, your wisdom, your practices, and processes of you and your team. So I really appreciate the time, and I'm sure our listeners will appreciate your lessons. So thanks, Dan.
Hey, thank you, Jamie. Glad to be a part of it.